Audiences have been fascinated for years by visions of outer space and beings from other planets, other worlds. In 1953, audiences were not disappointed with the science fiction classic Invaders from Mars.
Gee whiz.
33 years later, Tobe Hooper, director of such terrifying thrillers as Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist, hopes today's audiences will be just as thrilled with the new Invaders from Mars.
I thought it was a picture well worth remaking because of that, because of what I saw, the potential of what could be brought to a contemporary audience.
Right now I'm at Invaders from Mars. I just finished Invaders from Mars. I mean, there's a lot in that story. I know a friend, he owned the rights to a book called The Space Vampires. And he took that to Canon and made a deal with Canon. And they eventually turned that into the movie Life Force, which is directed by Tobe Hooper. And my friend, who was a producer on that project early on, I think it was in the pre-production stages. I don't even think it got into production yet. But my friend said that his dealings with Tobe Hooper were so bad because he was so out of it and so far gone that he bought his way out of the contract and didn't want to have anything to do with the film, and he left. And then they made the movie. So he didn't take part in Life Force at all. So when I read what you were talking about with Invaders from Mars, but when I read that chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder Tobe Hooper. Because, you know, I've often wondered about Poltergeist is a fantastic film. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is great. I've often wondered after Poltergeist, like, why didn't he keep working with Spielberg? Why didn't he keep going in that direction, you know? And I guess I know why.
That's why.
Cocaine is why.
Yeah, Tobe was a piece of work. It's beyond me, literally. You guys have been on a movie set before, big or small. You know the process. Imagine after every take, whether it's a print or not, you go in your dressing room. Imagine that. Imagine how much time is wasted. Tobe Hooper, he's a type of a guy that it's beyond me how a producer could hire him to direct a film. The situations that I visually saw, and I was on it every day, because every day was action, at some kind of big or small, you know, whether it's teaching actors, you know, how to move like military or military situation, or, you know, something with another actor, or Karen Black, you know, she was a raving lunatic.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that was actually her son too in the movie.
The classic story in there with my precious stunt double of her son, who was Laura Dash. She's a stunt woman, and he didn't like the idea that I hired a woman to double him, being a man, a kid, you know, but I did anyway. His mother, Karen Black, was a neurotic, schizophrenic.
That's what Rob Zombie said too when we saw him at the Comic-Con. He said that's why he didn't have her back for House of a Thousand Corpses.
In Invaders from Mars, playing Linda afforded Karen Black an unusual opportunity. Her leading man was her son, Hunter.
Okay, then we have to go to the...
We have more fun when we're by ourselves and we're not making a movie. When you're making a movie, you do leave the other guy alone. If he's your son, if he's your husband, whatever he is, you leave him alone, let him do his own work. And so in a way, you have less transaction because you must behave that way and allow him his space and his time and keep off.
And I thought it was pretty fun working with my mother. I know, and most kids don't get to do that if they're an actor. They don't get to work with their mother.
But after all was said and done, how did Hunter really like working with his mother?
This is weird, but we've handled it.
And I have to say this, Louise Fletcher, I mean, a woman in that category that's done films. I mean, she was so nice and so good. I mean, I love her work, and I couldn't understand what she was doing on that film. Because I doubled her in some stunts, and I had some major conversations, and she literally mentioned to me 2 or 3 times, I don't know why I took this movie. Steve, I don't know why I'm here. And I would just look at her and I say, I'm sorry. This is the movie that I think ended the good luck streak in the money making for Menachem Golan. This is the movie that he started to go broke. All the heads of departments, and especially the effects, took him for so much money because there were so many problems. Stan Winston took him for so much money, millions upon millions of waste on purpose. And I was behind the scenes. I work hand in hand with effects as a stunt coordinator. And I constantly try to explain to our production manager, David Walmart, who's a great friend of mine, who did the Ninjas, 2 of the Ninjas. He was a production manager, that this effects, Stan Winston is raking Canon Films for all kinds of money. There are things happening that shouldn't be happening here, you know, and they couldn't do anything about it because Winston had a contract. But there was so much waste. Things were breaking down all the time. Things didn't work on purpose. You know, that big space.
The brain thing, the big brain monster thing. Is that what you're talking about?
We all called it something else though. And the minute that was revealed to the whole crew, you should have heard Karen Black, you should have heard Tobe Hooper, you know. Every day Tobe Hooper complained about it, but he had no choice because it was built already. Nobody went to see the end result, or they had no drawings, you know.
Why do you think McKim, I mean, he obviously, I guess, must have just loved Tobe Hooper, because I mean, he gave him 3 big productions that were like, for Canon movies, the 3 Tobe Hooper movies are pretty big budget for Canon films.
It was at this stage, just right before this movie, that Menachem Golan decided he wanted to do an Academy Award winning movie. And people were persuading him, if you get major actors and if you put in major money, you know, we'll get you that, you know, Academy Award. And he put in millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars, and all these actors that he was getting, whether they were once big stars or not big stars now, but in his mind, because he's Israeli, you know, people like Karen Black, you know, and the other actors in Invaders from Mars. Between Winston and between Tobe Hooper, so much time, and those costumes, I had to hire little people for it. And they had no vents, no oxygen in there, no air. And picture this, I would go inside there. You couldn't put in anybody bigger than 5'8" in there. So I would hire a stunt guy to go in there, and then a little person to go on my shoulders, the stunt guy's person, to go on the shoulder. There was no system where you put me in first and put the little person in. And I would have to work some devices, and the little person up high on my shoulders would have to work some devices, whatever we had going on. So it wasn't a one person or another person working it. We would have to work it, and they would break down all the time. And we were only able to stay in there like 3 minutes at a time. And the little person, maybe a minute and a half, you know, because they're more fragile. So I had more little people quit on me on that show than you can imagine that I've had in my whole lifetime, that 1,000 stunt guys have had quit on them in their lifetime, big or small, because the little people couldn't take it. You know, it was so hard on my shoulders, and to be confined and only be able to breathe for like a minute. It was impossible. So there was a constant turnover in my little people.
It's all right, boys. It's all right.
How's he know they're boys?
Shut up. I think I have something that belongs to you. This is yours, right? This is yours. Good. That's right. I'm Mark Weinstein. Dr. Weinstein. I'm from SETI, S-E-T-I, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And you do understand me, don't you? You do. They do understand me. You see? They do understand me. Fire!
Marines come to the rescue in this version of Invaders from Mars, protecting the world from evil Martians. In the original film, old Defense Department footage was used. This time, however, 300 real Marines were brought in under the supervision of military advisor Dale Dye.
My job essentially is to work for Tobe Hooper, our director, and liaison between him and all of his various support departments to make sure that anything that has to do with the military in the film, in this case the United States Marine Corps, is exactly the way he wants it, and on the other hand, exactly the way it really would be if these were real Marines.
This highly disciplined and trained unit of Marines went Hollywood as they experienced all the behind-the-scenes action of being in a movie, which had incredible sets, dazzling special effects, and a large cast and crew.
And as far as the filming is concerned, we're having a real good time here. We're being treated real well with everybody, and working with Dale and everybody else, and getting some of these scenes out is pretty interesting. None of us have ever been involved in a filming before.
Mark Ebenhock, he was the military advisor on that movie. He worked on like Born on the 4th of July. He worked on Platoon too as well. He worked in a bunch of movies, but he's listed as a military technical advisor on that film.
After that, I had worked with him on 5 or 6 shows. I worked with him on Always. So our life together, we always laugh about Invaders from Mars whenever we saw each other. Because the first time we met each other, I didn't know him, never met him. And he was technical advisor. And up until then, I never had a technical advisor on my shows, right? There have been technical advisors, military and all that. I understood that, right? I've always seen it on other people's shows, working for other people, but I never had one, right? Now, what they do in the military is not what they do in the movies. We're subject to glamour and, over dramatize and all that. In the military, they don't, it's cut and dry. Inside the cave, all the Army guys came in. And the lead guy, who was me, I played multiple parts in that show too. The lead guy who was blowing the bazooka was me. I had about 20 stunt guys behind me as Army guys, taking bullet hits and all that. And this one guy who is a very dear friend, and I called him Papa. I always called him Papa. His name was Roy Clark, because whenever you spoke to him, he talked to you like he was your father, Papa Roy. But Roy took a bullet hit, and stuntman's way, over dramatize it so the audience could see, so make it dramatic. And he came over and started discuss with Roy Clark that don't take bullet hits like that. That's not the way it happens. This was his first movie. So him and I looked at each other. I went over to him because he was using a high tone to my dear Papa. And I try to explain to him, listen, I understand the military way, but we take liberties in the movie business. He did it fine. It's a print. Cameraman, make sure you print that. That's fine. And we went back and forth, and we really didn't see eye to eye, right? And then a couple of years later, we worked on another movie, and we became friends, and we kind of laughed about it. Then I did another one, did about 4 or 5 with him. It was very cool. By the time, I think Always was the last one. And the minute we saw each other, we hugged. And Spielberg couldn't understand why we hugged. We thought we didn't know each other. The guy told Spielberg the story and he laughed. He's a very smart man and very talented, very gifted. But as far as stunts, stay out of that, please. Knowledgeable, very smart, and what a terrific gift in acting. Mark and Dale Dye, these guys are badasses. I mean, I followed Dale Dye's career, from Invaders from Mars, which was, pretty sure it was his first thing, and the experience having with him not understanding stunts, being motion picture way, just his way, the confrontation we had, and then going all the way, working on 3 or 4 films with him, and then going to Always, we had laughed about it, and as we worked, we became, great friends. And the guy is a very smart man. And to get where he was on Invaders from Mars, because he was he started out as a technical advisor, didn't know anything, didn't know anybody. But his knowledge was so vast that his acceleration from technical advisor to writer to actor was extraordinary. It's something I would have wished I was smart enough to do, because I had opportunities like that. So, Dale Dye and Mark, they're very gifted people.
Remaking Invaders from Mars became an obsession for director Hooper for years, since viewing the original film as a child. Now that the dream is a reality, the awesome burden of remaining faithful to the original film still challenges him.
I wanted to capture, or I should say recapture, those images that literally burned holes in my mind and my imagination and dreams when I was a child.
Only the people who worked on it, the heads consistently, from the beginning to the end, the chosen few knew how crazy it was, like I. It was just so insane. And between Tobe Hooper and Menachem Golan and the abuse that was taking place there. David Womark was a producer, production manager on the show. We go back a long time. He's the guy behind the camera that I hold dear. Revenge of the Ninja, The Domination, called me for Invaders from Mars, because originally, the first week, I didn't work on that show. It was another stunt coordinator. They were afraid to fire. When they asked me to come on, they said, when David Womark called me to do the show, he didn't mention that he hadn't fired the stunt coordinator yet. So when I got on there, they were filming already for a week. So the first day when I was on there, I had a meeting with David Womark and Tobe Hooper in Tobe Hooper's Honey Wagon motorhome. And David Womark says, we got one problem. I want you to do me a big favor, because we know each other so long and we helped each other and we're good friends. And I go, what's the favor, David? Because he kept on, procrastinating. And he said, we didn't fire the stunt coordinator yet. We want you to fire. And I looked at him.
What?
And I said, other stunt coordinators don't fire other stunt coordinators. Yeah. I know this stunt coordinator. His name was Eddie Dono. And he was a terrific stunt guy. Terrific stunt guy, terrific stunt coordinator. But as I explained in the book, the reasons, I won't get into it, they wanted to release him. But they were afraid because, again, he has he's old school. And he has kind of a hardening attitude. And this is Canon, Menachem Films. It was okay because we knew each other. I got into a conversation with him and I said, it's best to just leave things go and leave now. And he did.
It's got to be awkward, though.
Yeah, and he knew my reputation, so if he had a hand with me, he knew that it would be a little more difficult. So I wasn't David Womark.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to talk to David Womark sometime too. I mean, he seems like a cool guy from the interviews
He's a
I've
very
seen.
cool guy, but a very hard man to get a hold of. Almost impossible these days. He's a very private person now. And even Shmulik and I have a hard time getting a hold of him. But, you know, I haven't seen him in years. And when I do see him, I hope I see him again. You know, I'm just going to take him and hug him and then put him in a bear hug and squeeze him. And harder and harder and say, God damn it, next time, you know, when we call you, answer the phone.
I love that picture of you where you're dressed like the cowboy and you're trying to kiss him and he's like trying to get away from you.
Yeah,
it's a great shot.
And that was a whole joke. You know, they set me up for that, but that's how much I cared from him. You know, him and Shmulik, you know, were very dear. They were. It was always David Womark, Sam Furstenberg, and the cameraman, whichever movies, you know, whether it was Revenge or The Domination or American Ninja. Those were, you know, that was the key, you know. Sure. And David was a big part of it. And David was like gold, a lot like Sam Furstenberg. And, you know, you produce, you work, you know, we love your work, do whatever you want to do, come up with any idea. You know, the only problem I had was with David was money. And, you know, because he took his orders from Menachem Golan. So, you know, he's the money guy. So to get money out of it was like pulling teeth. In Revenge of the Ninja, I borrowed his rent-a-car in one scene, doing a near miss. And he made me promise not to drive fast with the car, not to hurt the car, because it was a rent-a-car. And he had no insurance on it at the time. And I said, I promise. And he still didn't believe me. So he goes, I tell you what, I'm going to be a passenger. And I said, okay. I mean, I didn't believe how stupid he was. I didn't care if he was a passenger. And sure enough, I hit the gas and the hose like a blue comet, something like a greenish blue comet. You'll see it. You know, I'm hanging out the back and there's a car that comes by and he throws a 180. Near misses me hanging off the door of the back, and David Womark's in the passenger screaming in my ear, you know, you lied to me, stop the car. You know?
That's so great.
And at the end of the scene, when they cut and they print, he got out of the car and literally, I mean, I promise you, I'm not lying to you, he kneeled down and kissed the ground. That's how scared and nervous he was.
Wow.
You had to be there.
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny.
That is great. That's so great. That's during the van sequence, right? You also did, it was your idea to do the tombstone in his name too, right?
Yes.
On Ninja 3, The Domination at the graveyard?
Yeah.
That's a great
classic. When he came out, he was so upset. Not mad upset, but just so upset. It was like a superstitious thing with him, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And I expressed that. Now you know how I feel, because originally I explained in the book, I wasn't so keen, you know, doing a whole fight scene in a real graveyard, you know. So, and he laughed at me. So I said, okay, laugh, okay, because they weren't about to change the story point for me. So, and that's what he said, kind of laughed with it. I said, okay, so I remembered that. So I made I made a plan with Shmulik and made the gravestone up. And destroyed it, you know, did a kick and destroyed it. We played so many jokes on Revenge of the Ninja, all of us on each other. It was just so much fun. Yeah, I tell a story in the book Invaders From Mars. Yeah, there was this one day, you know, David Womark called me up on the walkie-talkie and said, get over here around to the front entrance of the warehouse. There's going to be a showdown between Tobe Hooper and his lawyers and Menachem and his lawyers. The trailers of the production heads, like wardrobe and props and producers, production managers, were all right next to each other. You know, that's usually how it goes, you know. I met David there, and we were in the corner of the building of the warehouse, and, you know, all of a sudden, and this is when Menachem pulled up with his lawyers, and he had a megaphone, and he literally called Tobe Hooper out from the stage, and Tobe Hooper came out with his lawyers. He had his lawyers there that day, and it was like, I swear to God, and David Womark and I were peeking, just our heads peeking, watching around the corner because we didn't want to be seen. We didn't want any part of it, and it was like, I swear to God, it was like the showdown at the OK Corral. It started small and it just blew up. It was just an incredible spectacle. The mind frame that Tobe Hooper is in. I think I left a story in where he dropped a cigar through the set, and they had to spend hours disassembling it because he wanted that cigar. You know, it would have took a short amount of time for a guy to go buy him another cigar, but he wanted that cigar. Such a talented guy too. There was so much waste. Also, a lot of the production heads, like Stan Winston, special effects, you know, God bless him, Academy Award winner. But, you know, I knew what was going on behind the scenes. And, you know, I just thought he abused the situation. And the money that was wasted, what I'm trying to say, the money that he made was just, I wish I made that money. I felt they would prolong things, you know, they would delay things would break down, things that I thought could be fixed and I've seen fixed, you know, within minutes. Sometimes it took days, sometimes it took weeks, you know, and that's money on top of money. I got this budget is like this. And I mean, I'm looking at these guys, the waste and abuse, you know, and I have no money, you know, hardly any money to put together action. You know, the action, as I explained to you, you know, wasn't big in Canon Films as far as money. If you wanted something, you'd have to figure out a way to simply do it, you know, whether it was with yourself or getting people or things on the cheap end, or doing it the cheap way. And when I say cheap, I don't mean, you know, something's inferior. I just mean another way to do it, the old-fashioned way. When you have people like Karen Black and her son, a lot of people don't know that that was her son, the little kid, and Tobe Hooper, and all the things that are going on there. You know, I'm the stunt coordinator. Part of my job is to make everything safe. You know, God bless the little people, all the monsters, you know, walking around there, and we had tons of them. You know, well, people don't realize that, you know, this is the 80s. You know, the suits, the monster suits, you know, all the mechanical stuff weren't like it is today. You know, I'm not exaggerating. It took an hour to get out of the suit. It took an hour and a half to get in the suit. The little people, you know, little people are fragile. So every 5 minutes, I had little people passing out. I had little people quitting. You know, I had maybe 20, 25 little people all through the show working on there. And they would constantly quit. And the more money I get, no, don't quit. I know it's hard. And you know, to put a little person in a suit like that, with you know, rubberized, with no ventilation, no air conditioning, no way to breathe, you know, it's very dangerous and very difficult. So we literally could only stay in there for 5 minutes. I was pouring sweat every time I took that off. So the time that was wasted, instead of putting some kind of ventilation, they would waste so many hours. They were quitting because they couldn't take it. And you know, we have a thing, not only as a stuntman, not only I pay him a daily contract, but we have a thing called adjustments. You just come in and you get a contract. You get a day's pay. If you do anything with a degree of difficulty, then I adjust you more money. Well, I had planned on my budget sheet, you know, $100 here, $100 for this small person, $100 that small person. Well, at the end of the day, when they were quitting, they got me up to like $1,000. And the producer, you know, David Womark would come to me, we can't pay this kind of money. And I said, well, you should have thought of that at the very beginning and make these guys put ventilation and fresh air in these suits. You know, now you have no choice because we're halfway through these scenes with the little people, and I don't have any more little people to hire. So either you pay them or we don't have any more little people. We can't do the scenes. So they were caught between a rock and a hard place. And those little people, they didn't care about the money, the majority about it, because it was so hard.
It's amazing that movie came out as coherent as it did. Like a beginning, a middle, and an end. After you watch it and you just hear about all these things, you're like, holy shit. Well, just the stuff with the kid, the attitude with the kid, and he got in a fight.
Hunter Carson was Karen Black's son, and he was a spoiled brat. Big time spoiled brat. And I hired a stunt person to double him. Well, it was a female, you know. Laura Dash is a very talented little person. And we've worked together before, and I love her to death. She's old school also, with new school. And she's very smart. Well, anyway, when Hunter found out that it was a female, he went ballistic. And I had to have a meeting with Karen Black, and it was a whole situation. Anyway, I got to keep Laura Dash. Hunter Carson wasn't very happy. So there was a moment there where I wasn't around. I was doing something else, and Laura Dash and Hunter Carson met, and they got into words. And Laura Dash is the sweetest girl. Yes, sir. You know, yes, ma'am. You know, I understand. And just a sweet woman, talented stunt woman. And it got out of hand, and he hit her. And she came to me and explained it to me, found me on the set, and explained to me what happened. And I was really upset, and I went over to him and tried to have an adult, polite, kids conversation between a kid and an adult. Try to explain to him that that's not nice to hit another person, let alone a girl, let alone a small person, you know. And he just didn't care. And I went to have a conversation with his mother again, and she didn't care, you know. And at the end of it, I had a conversation with Laura Dash, and I said, you know, if it happens again, hit him back. Hit him back. That's it. And he'll learn his lesson. You know, don't break his nose. Don't hurt him. Don't cut him. You know, just make him feel like, you know, he's not going to do it again.
Absolutely.
And she said, you know, no, I don't want to do that, Steve. You know, she's so sweet. Well, that's your only alternative, and I give you permission. I'll back you up 1,000%. Being in the situation I was in with Canon Films, you know, I might have thought about another way, but I had a lot of experiences with Hunter Carson and Karen Black, and a lot of headaches and a lot of things that were very egotistical and out of control and spoiled, and you know. So make a long story short, you know, a couple of days later, they got into another conversation. Hunter Carson hit her, and she hit him back, and he started crying. You know, I had to have another meeting with his mother, and I had explained to her. I said, well, if you didn't want this to happen, you would have told your son, you know, the difference between right and wrong. You know?
Try parenting a little
bit. Yeah, that would have been a good word. You know? I went into a little more detail, niceness, you know, to try to make her understand. And again, she didn't care. But, you know, that was the situation.
Very serious business, this. It's from the point of view of a young man, with where all the authority figures begin to isolate themselves and change and become a threatening image rather than someone to go to for help. And it's a universal theme about isolation and about having all the doorways closed to you, no one to turn to for help.
David Gardner just woke up to a nightmare in his own backyard. But no one will listen.
We landed right back there, right behind the hill.
No one will believe.
I told you, he needs psychiatric help.
And soon, no one will be left.
Dad? Are you okay, Dad?
Fine. Because something strange is happening to the people of Willow Creek.
Everything's fine now.
And David Gardner is about to find out why.
David! I couldn't find my mom and Dad! I'm back here! No!
David Gardner?
Canon Films presents Tobe Hooper's Invaders from Mars. There's no place on Earth to hide.